This week on FX Guide TV.
We look at the Philips Carousel amazing 21:9 spot.
This and more coming up next.
Hello and welcome to FX Guide TV. Now, it's easy to focus on Hollywood effects films for the coolest new work, but every now and then something comes along that really surprises us. Here in the office, we got more emails and Twitters about the Philips Carousel 21:9 web spot than any other film in recent times. Filmed in Prague, but the visual effects are done in Stockholm, Sweden, Mike Seymour spoke with Richard Lyons from Red Rum about this amazing 2-minute masterpiece.
Thanks, Ange. Well, I'm joined on the line by Richard Lyons from Stockholm in Sweden. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Well, congratulations on an outstanding spot. I guess we call it a spot. Was it always designed as a web deliverable?
It was, from the start, it was a web deliverable. It still is only a web deliverable at the moment. There is talk about making this a commercial for the cinema, which sort of in turn created a few problems along the way, because the first delivery format was actually based around web resolution, which we were working at. I think it was 672 by 288 pixels. As soon as I heard talk of cinema, I decided to keep the pipeline in HD, which of course led to longer render times and a lot more detail.
Richard, the spot seems to work on a couple of levels. Firstly, you have this very long continuous frozen moment piece that actually loops all the way back around to starting over again, which is incredibly impressive. And then secondly, because it's a web deliverable, you can actually interrupt that story at various points to get the point of view of the director or the VFX supervisor. Though hopefully we can get a bit more information out of you this time.
Regarding the hotspots, yeah.
Yes, because in the one in the actual piece on air, there are a few how can I put it, shortcuts or tricks that appear that certainly I wasn't aware had been technology that had been invented yet.
So let's just get rid of these. With razor-sharp images like these, everything shows up. Now let's get rid of this dust spot. At this level of detail, we see every bump. This makes the motion as smooth as possible. Last thing, we've got to check are the colour levels. Let's crush the blacks a little to get them nice and dark, and just lift the greens a bit. There, ready for the big screen.
That's right, yeah. There was sort of like a tongue-in-cheek approach to that whole VFX thing. It was just a bit of fun, really. Yeah, we made that whole effects GUI in After Effects and just added that in.
Well, on behalf of the whole industry that kind of hates you now for implying that it's that easy to do something this complicated, but it is a complicated spot. Tell me, Richard, how much pre-production time did you have when you were planning this?
We didn't have an awful lot, actually. After we'd found the location, then we had approximately a week and a half of pre-production time, where we started doing animatics, very loose animatics, but I'd measured the whole location, and basically we had a camera that was pretty rough at that time. We then went over to the guys at the VFX company and sort of synced up with them with the motion control stuff.
By the VFX company, you actually mean a company called the VFX company, right?
Yeah, they're based in London. They do a lot of motion control stuff, feature films. They're very, very competent guys, and they really know their motion control stuff.
So, Richard, when you actually shot the whole thing, you actually broke it down effectively, into 7 sections?
That's right, 7 takes.
And of those 7 sections, how many of those were motion control?
So there were 3 motion control takes, there were 2 Technocrane takes, 1 Panther crane, and a dolly.
So, Richard, when working with the motion control, what was the motion control passes giving you that you weren't getting just from a normal dolly or track?
Yeah, well, generally, if you take an overview of the entire project, what the whole issue, the whole biggest nightmare is the transitions. There were no 2 motion controls that were consecutive, so there was always another camera move in between. But the reason we focused on motion control in certain areas was that it allowed us to create more plates for wire removal and clean passes and stuff like that. So ideally, what we would like to have done is, one of the things I really would like to have done, which we didn't do, was the link between the lower lobby and the upper lobby. I would really have liked to have made that a motion control move, but due to time constraints, we didn't have the time to get the motion control rig upstairs and re-rigged in time.
Okay, Richard, well, let's break down the sections, starting with section 1, which is the exterior shot, starts on the guy shooting and goes ahead, though, in fact, that is already part way into a take, isn't it? When we come back to that, the seam line, if you like, is before we start the vision actually going, which I think is the first trick you did, is that correct?
Exactly, that's correct.
And so after that, we've got that really long track that we see moving down the outside of the building past the exploded truck. How did you do that and remove the track?
Yeah, basically we used a lot of, I mean, every single take that we did, we 3D tracked using synthesize. Just that exterior shot, once we got the 3D track, we just used flame and a lot of projection passes. And a lot of hard work with painting, but basically it was a lot of use of projectors in flame that gave us the ability to remove track.
And along the overturned cars, there's the explosion at the back of the truck. Is that done in CGI?
All of the explosions and all of the muzzle flashes were actually done by another Swedish company, Magoo Studios, and they basically used I think it's Fume Effects, which is a plug-in to Max, which allows you to create explosions. The problem with the explosions was that to do explosions is hard enough at the best of times, but to do explosions that stand still and hold when you get close to them or even go through them is extremely complex. And it took us quite a lot of trial and error to find stuff that worked.
So our first transition, Richard, is at the end of that sequence. We seem to go around what looks like the back of a Volvo, and we come to the guys with the muzzle flashes in the air, shooting at the guy going up the steps. Is that right?
Yeah, you shouldn't look too closely at that one. That's basically, that's going from the motion control to a Technocrane. A Technocrane take that was taken around 4 o'clock in the morning when everyone was tired and ready to wrap for the day. This transition, and also the lower lobby to the upper lobby transition, basically when you've got two 3D cameras which are tracked, it's very hard to get a flow between them because they're either moving at different velocities or they're moving in different directions. So what I did was, using very simple dissolves, I basically fed that into the Flames 3D tracker and just tried doing a 3D track on that and actually managed to get something out, which I then again used projection techniques to map the floor, and a bit of warp and tickle on the ambulance got us home on that first transition there.
I would have thought the ground there was a particularly hard one to transition. Okay, so we're into the building now, and that's a very complicated setup. It's also where one of the web featurettes are. But how many passes or goes or takes did you have to do to be able to get that? Because it's obviously very complicated having a lot of actors holding poses. Was that like 50 takes, or how long did it take to get that?
Actually, I think we got that on like the third take. The whole lower lobby scene. Basically, the whole shoot throughout the whole film was very, very tight. We had a total of 2 days, 2 very long days. So we were sort of shooting in a little Ed Wood style, but we were pretty happy on the third take, and I knew that any issues that were there, since it was motion control, we had other passes and we could actually patch together little small errors that did occur. And
so, Richard, from there's a transition that goes up to looking at the next floor up. That looked like one of the more difficult transitions to do?
Yeah, that was again using the same technique as I did for the exterior transition there. I just used the 2 3D tracks. I used a soft dissolve there, because the problem was that the Panther crane that did the pickup to the upper lobby was going from standstill, of course, and the motion control was in motion at that particular crossover point. So basically we're using a soft dissolve there, which we then fed into the Flame 3D tracker. And basically, because the problem we had was that on the pickup, where we start going to the upper lobby, where I've dissolved, the 2 guys are already in shot, so we don't have them coming into shot. Basically using freeze frame, no more than just using a freeze frame and projector in Flame, managed to get that to just come back before the dissolve point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because there's a lot of overlap there. In fact, the 2 guys' feet don't line up between the takes. So then we're up now at the top of the first level, and there's this beautiful volumetric kind of explosion. And I guess the thing that sells those shots when you're putting CGI in is really good contact lighting with the actors around. Would you agree?
Exactly. Again, the guys at Magoo had a lot of time. They went through a lot of time to get that explosion right, and it was a long journey, that explosion, I can say. It just took a long time to get it to sit, but we were quite happy with the results. And also we had the issue with that explosion was to cover some of the corridor that we're going into after this particular area, because we didn't have a way of getting into that corridor nicely, and that's if you look at it, you'll see that it's actually, again, using projection.
So I guess the other thing that was that the speed that you're actually shooting this at, most of this material was shot at, what, 50 frames a second? In other words, it was overcranked, is that right?
Yeah, we shot at 50 frames. Some of the stuff didn't allow us to do that due to limitations on the motion control because it was moving so fast. But there was two reasons that we went with shooting at a high frame rate. One was that it gets through the move quicker so that people don't have to stand still so long. The other reason was to give us more frames, because once we'd shot this, we basically stitched everything together pretty roughly, and then we sent that off to a guy who was sitting with me during the shoot, Paul Hardcastle, who did a lot of the, if you like, the video assist on site, where we were pretty much lining up every shot and just checking that it was going to work. He basically took the very rough comp and did a time ramp on the entire film to make it more interesting, so that we could speed up through very boring sections and then relax again on the interesting sections. And the sort of irony of the whole film is that the duration of the film is 2 minutes and 19 seconds, 21 frames.
Well, now we come down to the clown's mask, and the lighting doesn't really seem to match exactly between the first pass and the second. Was that just handled with morphs, or?
Yeah, pretty much. There was a couple of issues there. There was the lighting. There was also the fact that the money bag on the right-hand side there was, after several takes with the motion control and several takes with the Technocrane, that had been knocked quite a few times, so there was absolutely no likeness to the original take there. So there was, it was basically warp and tickle there, and again, using projectors in flame to sort of get that to sit.
So we come off the mask, and of course we're up to the original starting point, which when we see it as an audience, of course, we're looking for the seam line, but of course you did your last seam a few seconds ago. So generally, I think, terrific spot. But tell me something about your company, because you guys are pretty darn new, aren't you?
Yeah, we're very new. We opened the doors here at Redrum sort of around November last year. However, we've been working in the Swedish post industry for around, I don't know, together, the three people that have started this company, we've been working together for around sort of 14 years in Sweden.
Well, I can't imagine a more impressive tour de force or a demonstration of what your company is capable of. So it's a great way to launch, and of course, I'm so glad that it's been brought to such international attention. You must be very pleased.
Yes, it really was, and it was. I think a lot of people were surprised that we'd taken on such a job due to the sheer size of it. But basically, I think it just goes to show that if you've got the dedication and the talent, that nothing's impossible. And we did have help from other companies, again, like I say, Magoo doing the 3D explosions. But we are a pretty small company, and like I say, we're actually less than 10 employees here. So.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing it. I'm glad you did it as you said at the beginning, in an HD finish, because I look forward to seeing it in cinemas, and I'm sure it'll get there. Thank you so much for spending time talking to us, Richard. We really appreciate it. Back to you, Ange.
And if you have an amazing spot or project, let us know about it by emailing us here at fxguidetv. Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, see ya. For more industry news, in-depth features, podcasts and forums, check out fxguide.com. And for visual effects training, check out fxphd.com.